Show.
This has been the scourge of the Open Series for the better part of a year and a half,
Yeah.
particularly in the hands of William Jensen. Sneak and Show has been posting tremendous results over the past, 18 months we've been covering this. But Andrew Shrout playing the arch nemesis of Sneak and Show.
Shrout doesn't like losing to Sneak and Show.
No.
He doesn't want to do that at all. So I guess he's going to try not to because he's playing with Death and Taxes, which is the actual nemesis of Sneak and Show. Sneak and Show can win. I've seen Huey do it, but if you can choose a matchup to play against, this is I think the last one that you would select.
Right. Bear in mind, no Force of Wills and not a huge clock, so the Death and Taxes deck does need to get some stuff in play to disrupt Sneak and Show. So the most explosive Sneak and Show openings are still good, but if the game grinds down to the place where the Death and Taxes player is able to set up their lock, then the Sneak and Show deck really struggles to compete.
So both players are going to take at least one mulligan here. Two Chargers fans right now. You see, I believe Riley has stolen Andrew's hat.
Yes.
I think that's what's happened here. But Shrout has a backup Chargers hat. What kind of fan is he? That's ridiculous.
Very enthusiastic.
He said he's not even that big of a fan. He said his brother's more of a fan. And yet, two Chargers hats and a Chargers shirt.
Probably pleased with Andy Dalton throwing the ball repeatedly into the chest of Chargers defensive backs this game. From the updates I'm getting
it's an interception.
via my phone.
It's called interception strategy.
Yeah, it's a controversial. Let's see how it works for him.
Yeah, it's worked really well for him in the past, so I think he's going to try it again here. Everyone in Cincinnati are losing their proverbial minds right now, but
right.
Shrout and Curran certainly do look happy about what's taking place in that football game. And they're off to a nice start this particular tournament, both sitting at 3-1, even though they are taking a mulligan here.
So Sneak and Show, for those of you not that familiar with Legacy, the point of this is to either get Sneak Attack into play or Show and Tell, using it to cheat in either Gristlebrand or Emerald Pool.
And the rest of the Sneak Attack.
Yep, and then the rest of the deck from there is basically just set up, as you see Riley take another mulligan.
Now, Mulligan 5 a lot of times would be frustrating and annoying, and no one enjoys Mulligan 5. But if there's one deck that can kind of undo Mulligan 5 pretty quickly, it's this one. It can Mulligan 5 and still put a gigantic monster in play on turn 1.
Yeah, between Lotus Petal and the 2-mana land, City of Traders and Ancient Tomb, and the namesake card, Show and Tell, you can get some really powerful 5-card hands.
It's really... obviously it's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world to have that happen. So we'll see if Riley can overcome this Mulligan 5 as he's going to peel 5 off the top, see if he's happy. Doesn't look thrilled, but he is going to keep, and we are going to be underway momentarily here as Shrout is going to start off with, see if it's a Caracas, see if it's a Plains. It is a Plains, and passing of the turn back. No Mother of Runes, no Aether Vial to get things started.
And keep in mind, no Force of Will, again, in Shroud's deck, so he's sort of crossing his fingers for these first 2 turns, although Thalia is going to put a crimp into Riley's plans here.
Well, Riley decides, I don't think so. Force of Will, removing Brainstorm is going to take care of Thalia, so you can actually cast his spells. There's a polluted Delta and going to pass the turn back here. Now, of course, with Death and Taxes, the goal is to really just make things difficult for the opponent. I know that's not the most scientific description, but that's actually just what the deck tries to do. It's like kind of just trying to annoy you to death.
It tries to play a board presence game against other creature decks where you have Stoneforge Mystic plus equipment, you have Mother of Runes, Swords of Plowshares, and sort of annoying or tricksy creatures. And then against the unfair decks, it tries to use creatures like Thalia, like Phyrexian Revoker, to disrupt the combo deck while still applying pressure.
Now, Curran might run into a bit of an issue here as he actually just drew a Gristlebrand, and now he's going to sacrifice these fetch lands, and I think Mr. Shrout's going to have a response because he has an Aven Mind Center in his hand. So in response to that, now Curran's going to be able to sacrifice the other 2 in response to the Aven Mind Center. So it'll be the 3rd search that Aven Mind Center is going to have to try to find. Aven Mind Center is going to make it so that Riley has to find a land off of the top 4 cards.
Although if he does have both a Show and Tell and a Gristlebrand in his hand, so if he's able to find one of his lands off of this search, then he can put Gristlebrand into play this turn.
It's party time.
Yeah, we're hanging out.
Yeah. That's what will be happening. You see Riley's going to search through this deck, looking for basics so he doesn't get kind of wrecked by Wasteland here, which I think is smart. You take a look at his deck list and how many basics he does have. Oftentimes we see either 2 islands, 1 mountain, or 3 islands. It looks like we have the 3-island approach here.
No option to get a mountain, so His fetch lands don't allow it, and there isn't even one in his deck to begin with.
It was
So
an easy breezy.
now we're going to resolve this auto search, and
2, 3,
we'll spell.
and ooh.
Sorry.
That's 2 show and tells, a Lotus Petal, and an Emrakul. So bottoms up. Time to shuffle those away. He needs to peel a land. It needs to be a land that likely does not. It needs to be not a fetch land. Even a Lotus Petal is a little slow because it'll cost 1 more. Shrout's going to draw planes for the turn. And again, Curran is just kind of being annoyed to death with a Thalia and even Mind Sensor. You think of Legacy, you think of how powerful some of the cards are in the format. Gristlebrand, Emrakul, Show and Tell, just the cards in Riley's deck alone. Going up against Thalia and even Mind Sensor.
Yeah, the Death in Texas is the best convergence of nonsense that the format really has to offer.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of utility creatures. Doesn't really make a lot of sense on paper, but all of them are pinpointed towards the real predators of the format. For all of the disruption here, Riley is a mana away from either winning the game or functionally winning the game the next turn.
Yeah, we're also on a mulligan 5, too.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. 2 Stoneforge mixers are going to come into play, so we'll see if Shrout's going to search or anything. He has Sword of Fire and Ice in his hand, so I imagine he's going to go get Batterskull. Equipment check. He also has Umezawa's Jite in his main deck. When we do get to the sideboard, we'll see if he has any more hiding out in there, but he can basically, draw 2 cards here in the form of, draw 2 cards in the form of Batterskull and Umezawa's Jite.
Riley unable to find a mana source, and now he's really under the gun.
And without drawing a mana source here, it looks like he might have a lethal attack, right? We have an attack for 2, 4, 5. Sword makes it 6, 7, and then the sword trigger makes it 8, 9. So he might. Looks like Shrout's 1 point short right now. Draw a card as a source of Plowshares.
Is that a plow? I thought that looked like a Phyrexian Revoker.
If it is a Revoker, I do apologize. That is a Revoker, thank you. 3 pieces of equipment and a Revoker, so 4 artifacts in hand. See, Shrout's going to do the math here, and if Sword of Fire and Ice is good enough to make it lethal. But because Stoneforge Mystic actually has to tap to put 1 in play, and then the equip cost, she's going to use all of his mana, but it would be 2 from the Mind Sensor, 2 from the Thalia, 1 from the Stoneforge Mystic that can attack, and then you can basically say that Sword of Fire and Ice equals 4 damage.
Yep.
2 from the +2/+2, 2 from the trigger. That's going to be 9. Curran at 10, 1 point short, 1 turn short right now for Shrout.
The critical thing this turn is to get Riley below 8 life, because
Yes.
that prevents Gristlebrand from being activated. Andrew can easily power through an Emrakul next turn, so the big thing is just preventing Riley from being able to draw 7 and potentially finding a sequence of cards to get out from this spot.
And Riley is going to draw and concede the game. So Andrew Shrout is going to win game number 1 here with Death and Taxes versus Sneak and Show. A very, very, very favorable matchup for him. But Riley did take a mulligan of 5 there, and there are some explosive draws that Sneak and Show can put together, and sideboard can certainly help.
Yeah, I think that I think that the matchup is definitely favorable for Death and Taxes, but I believe it is somewhat overstated. If Riley finds a land off of that Mind Sensor or draws a mana source within 2 turns from there, we're talking about a very different game. And we've seen Sneak and Show, specifically in the hands of William Jensen, power through some of those kind of draws. So definitely favorable for Death and Taxes, but by no means a lock.
So in the Sneak and Show sideboard, what do you got hiding out over there?
3 copies of Pyroclasm. That's really good here because most of Andrew's creatures, 2 toughness or less. Very simple magic. He also has access to Echoing Truth if he wants to potentially bounce some of the more annoying utility creatures like Phyrexian Revoker, like Thalia. He has a Jace if he wants to convert into more of a normalized control deck. Through the Breach and Leyline Sanctity, not really for here. Blood Moon doesn't do very much, so I believe we're just going to see the 3 copies of Pyroclasm come in.
Shrout's side, and again, he already has a fairly favorable matchup here. The fact that he can add more things is actually kind of scary, but what he has access to is an Enlightened Tutor, a copy of Sword of Light and Shadow to go along with his equipment package and Stoneforge Mystic, a Singleton Ratchet Bomb, a Singleton Aethersworn Canonist, 3 copies of Rest in Peace, 2 Cataclysm, 2 Sunlance, 2 Oblivion Ring, and a Mirren Crusader. So I don't expect a lot of cards to come in here, but I do like the 2 copies of Oblivion Ring. Again, Lightning Tutor, the Singleton one, makes it so that he virtually has 3 copies of Oblivion Ring if he'd want them. But again, that's not really all that exciting. Crusader is a nice clock, but I don't think it's about putting in a clock on the opponent as fast as possible. It's just about disrupting them as often as you possibly can. And then outside of that, I don't really think he needs any of these other cards.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of Oblivion Ring in this matchup. You often see the Sneak and Show deck have to play Sneak Attack and say go because there aren't that many red mana sources in the deck. This is especially the case when it's playing against decks with Wasteland, with Thalia, with Rashad Port potentially. All these things constrict the red mana, and so the Sneak and Show player often plays Sneak Attack, says go, and hopes to just to get to untap and then do things from there. So you do get an opportunity to Oblivion Ring things. There's definitely this perception about Sneak and Show that you're killing or functionally killing in one turn, and often the deck actually has to break it up over the course of 2 turns, and Oblivion Ring can be very powerful in those spots.
So we'll see how both players choose to sideboard here. Looks like they have already gone through their 15 and they're shuffling up, getting ready for game number 2. Again, Curran, I'm sure, understands that this is a definitely a difficult road ahead here, as Shrout playing Death and Taxes, the natural foil to a Sneak and Show deck. We just saw that particular game where Shrout didn't even need to draw one of his 3 Caracases and did not really have a very difficult time winning the game. Just able to disrupt Curran long enough, put on a fast enough clock, and get the job done.
Yep. That is how this deck is supposed to function in these kind of matchups.
Yeah. And, for Shrout's build of this deck, you're going to find a lot of cards that are, pretty much the industry standard nowadays with 4 Mother of Runes, 4 Phyrexian Invokers, 4 Thalias, 4 Stone Hordes Mystics. We've seen some versions with Sarah Avengers, some without them. You see some versions with Mangara, some without them. Shrout has 3 Sarah Avengers. He has no Mangaras. He does have 3 Flicker Wisp, 2 Mirror Crusaders, and then 2 Aven Mind Sensors. Mind Sensor is a card that sometimes you see, sometimes you don't. 4 Aether Vial and 4 Swords, and then the small equipment package of a Jeté, a Battered Skull, and a Sword of Fire and Ice. The lands, again, nothing crazy here. 4 Wastelands, 4 Ports, 3 Caracas, 2 Rising Canopy, 1 Aganjo Castle, which I think is kind of neat. The Kamigawa land there that can actually protect Thalia from some damage like Pyroclasm, which is a card that's going to come in this matchup. So that's a fun little one-of to have.
A fun of.
Yes, if you will. It's fun beatable. As you see, Shrout's going to play a Plains. Curran has an island and a flooded strand. He's got a Forcible in his hand, some other things. Let's see if Shrout has a Caracas hiding out. He's got a Port and a Wasteland. Not sure he has a Caracas, though. And I don't know if it's proper to actually try to mulligan for Caracas in this matchup.
It appears that Riley has brought him through the breach as well.
Not too surprised about that, actually. Want some redundancy. And it is kind of scary to cast Show and Tell against this deck, honestly, because it feels like a lot of the time it's just going to backfire, right?
Especially if you're worried about something like Oblivion Ring in the post-board games.
Shrout's going to play a Wasteland. He's going to follow this up with a Mother of Runes and pass the turn back. So nothing too impressive here from the Death and Taxes player just yet. He could have played a Revoker if he wanted to, I believe, and get that established on Sneak Attack, but he chose to get Mom set up first. Brainstorm here from Curran. He's going to draw an Emrakul, a Polluted Delta, and a Lotus Petal.
Mother of Runes, the most unfair of fair Magic cards. If you are playing a fair deck and I'm playing a fair deck, Mother of Runes is about the best possible thing you can do.
It's crazy how good Mother of Runes is, actually.
Yeah. It got lost in the shuffle during, that time in Standard because people were dying on the second turn a lot. But in honest Magic, Mother of Runes is as good as it gets.
This was during Saga, correct?
Right. So when people are, Academy Rectoring in Yawgmoth's Bargain or replenishing 17 enchantments on the 4th turn or whatever, it's only like Mother of Runes doesn't really have a home. But if you printed it now, it would be, among the best cards in Standard.
Actually, no problem with that kind of Magic, though. I think that's a lot of fun. What did you play during that time? Were you replenish guy?
Mono blue Magpile.
No.
Yes. That's how I made my bones.
Wow, Mr. Counterspell.
A lot of them.
A 4 spike? Was that
not legal.
Then?
Not legal.
Oh man, that's too bad. My favorite counterspell of them all. You can see a port here from Shrout. Curran was able to drop down the Lotus Petal. Wants to get that in play before Thalia does show up. Also has those 2 fetch lands. Just has to be a little wary yet again of even Mind Sensor being a thing here, as that was good in the previous game with those 2 fetch lands. And Shrout's, he's going to play the Revoker now, so we'll see what he's going to name with this.
One presumes either Sneak Attack or Gristlebrand. assuming it gets to resolve, which it may not.
Lotus Petal isn't the worst name either.
That is true.
Because it does actually shut off mana abilities. Python Needle isn't one that can shut off mana abilities, but Revoker is. And that's going to get Force of Will, so that's pretty telling. Looks like Riley might go in for the big uppercut here through the Breach and Emrakul.
Yep. And unlike a lot of decks in Legacy, you know, there's no Daze, there's no Force of Will. The Death and Taxes deck it's on the board. What's there is there. So Riley working with pretty close to complete information here.
Riley going to sacrifice in his upkeep. Make sure he draws a different card after putting cards back with Brainstorm, but also wants to make sure he gets the basics so land does not get wastelanded.
Yeah. But not that many people know about my Dark and Sordid past as a mono-blue counterspell player, but that's how I made my bones back in the day.
I can't imagine you casting a Thieving Magpie.
Oh, it was so sweet.
How did you draw cards besides Magpie? Do you have like 8K?
Yeah, sure. Sometimes like Brainstorm, depending on metagame.
Okay. Ugh, you disgust me. I can't believe it. Sneak attack here being placed on the stack. You see Shrout's going to consult his hand. Does not seem too thrilled about what's coming next, and I wouldn't be either.
Checks his hand, confirms it's all 3-mana creatures, allows sneak attack to resolve.
Yeah. And Volcanic Island going to be searched for by that Flooded Strand. Chances are there's going to be a big scary monster coming up here in just a moment, and there is a big scary monster. Here it's Griselbrand. Now, will he be joined by the tag team of Lotus Petal and Emrakul? That is the question.
Yeah. Before we attack, let's check it out. You know, there's some chance you can just. Ooh, he's brought in Blood Moon.
Yeah. Oh, there's Lotus Petal.
Okay.
That's one. Do it again. Do it again.
You can check one more time.
Yeah. And that's just, I saw Emrakul scroll by.
They are holding hands, walking to the plus-size store with one another.
Yeah, it's like peanut butter and jelly. Lotus Petal, put you in.
Rechecks the hand, confirms it's 3-mana creatures, concedes the game.
Still Mirror Crusader and Seraph Venture.
Yep.
You got me. So, Riley Curran's going to tie this up here against Andrew Shrout, stealing one from Death and Taxes with a pretty good draw there.
Yep.
I think, again, I don't know if you're supposed to mulligan for Caracas in this particular matchup. There are only 3. You don't have any manipulation, so you don't have Brainstorm. You don't have Ponder or anything like that to actually try to find that card. But, you know, in that particular game, Shrout didn't really do anything.
Yeah, I mean, you clearly can't keep a hand that does nothing disruptive, but I think if you have a reasonable curve and Port and Wasteland, that qualifies as enough stuff to keep, as long as there's enough pressure in the hand as well.
Sure.
It's probably on the bottom end of keepable hands, but I don't think it's unreasonable.
Just certainly didn't look good.
Didn't look good.
No.
Definitely did
not look good. But, hey, Death and Taxes doesn't look good doing anything.
He also had a Revoker that game. I mean, it's not unreasonable that he has enough stuff in the hand to buy himself some time.
Yeah, if Revoker resolves, it likely names Sneak Attack, and then we're talking about, wow, Death and Taxes is so good against Sneak Attack and Sneak and Show. Everyone should be playing this deck. So, you know, it's all about context.
Yeah. I know that gets said a lot. Again, I don't quite buy it. I think the matchup's favorable, but not dramatically so.
Yeah. It feels like the games where Death and Taxes does beat a Sneak and Show deck, it feels like it's such an overwhelming advantage. You know, that sticks out in your memory of just like, yeah, you had Caracas and Revoker and Mother Runes, I couldn't kill anything, I couldn't do anything, and I lost to some stupid 3-1 flyer. But the games where, you know, they're fumbling around and, you know, drawing the wrong half of their deck or, you know, the wrong quarter of their deck, it's like, you know, you don't even really care what they're doing.
So, you saw Riley in that game bring in Caracas. You think that's just, I guess, exclusively to shut down, or Blood Moon rather. Do you think that's exclusively to shut down Caracas, or because it's actually reasonable to color screw this deck, there's actually not that many sources of white mana if you stick a Blood Moon?
I think it's a combination of the two, honestly. I think it is reasonable to do both of those things, but also you want to be able to shut off Caracas. This is a unique way to do that. You also want to be able to shut off Wasteland and Port. But as you mentioned, you can also just kind of color screw them. And there's not a lot they can do about it. Additionally, you are able to actually play Blood Moon on the first turn of the game. That's very possible, again, with the Soul Ring lands in Ancient Tomb and City of Traders and Lotus Petal. So I like Blood Moon coming in here a lot in this matchup. Again, it's not flashy. You know, there is a small percentage of the time that it may win you the game. But, you know, you want to make it so that you can shut off Caracas because you can't do what you used to do in the past, which was board in your own copies of Caracas to kill theirs. Due to the new legendary rule. Shrout on your left, he's going to be playing first.
Looks like he's keeping.
Riley doesn't look so sure.
All right, we're underway.
And that's a pretty good start, Mother of Runes. Now, it's not Aether Vial, but outside of that, it's off to a nice start here. As Riley's going to play Ancient Tomb. Oh, boy. Buckle.
Some fire.
Up.
Are we
Yeah.
already some fireworks?
I want to see it.
Oh. Bummer.
Is there a Wasteland or a port here for Shrout? There's a Thalia. There's a Wasteland, too.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 copies of Wasteland maybe in his hand. Not 100% sure there. Interesting that Riley moved in that quickly.
Well, I mean, he's playing the pedal presumably to play around a potential Thalia.
Okay. Well, Wasteland or Ancient Tomb. That's probably going to be a gigantic dagger attack here with the Mother of Runes. Pass it back as Riley's going to draw his card. Draws a Gristlebrand. There's another. Okay, back up Ancient Tomb.
I believe Riley's holding onto the Gitaxian Probe as the only blue card in his hand he has to pitch the Forcible.
Now, Shrout does have another copy of Wasteland in his hand. I did identify that correctly. And I think we're in a situation here where nothing changed. You know, I think you just do it again.
Right.
It's not like this deck has a bunch of lands. So, yeah, Wasteland D again. And get in for 1. It's not the fastest clock because Blood Moon's going to come off the top here, but it's good enough. And now Riley has to pass back with just a Lotus Petal in play. So Shrout's going to draw a card. He draws a Stoneforge Mystic. Going to play the Plains. See which 2-mana threat he wants to get on the table. It's a Thalia. Force of Will says no, removing that Gitaxian Probe that you did mention. Attack for 1. Put Curran down to 16.
Looks like Riley kept a hand that was... Oh, I guess... Never mind. He was lacking 1 mana. There's a sneak attack in his hand.
Now he's going to go down to 15, maybe, in a moment. By sacrificing the Misty Rainforest. And he's not going to. Draw a card. Enlighten Tutor the card off the top there for Shrout. I thought he would bring that one in just so he can search for O-Ring. So that it basically shuts off Show and Tell. But again, I think that in this particular matchup, having Show and Tell in your deck just seems like so poor. Because it's just going to backfire so often.
There's a lot of really bad things that can happen, that's for sure.
So let's see what Shrout wants to do on this turn.
I think he wants to play another copy of Thalia. And if that's the case, he needs to Enlighten Tutor right now.
Yeah. So Enlighten Tutor is going to resolve. Let's see what he's going to search for here. I'm going to test your memory, okay? This isn't really a test of your memory, but more of your opinion, I suppose. What's the best Enlighten Tutor deck?
Of all time?
Yeah. Like, was there an Enlighten Tutor combo deck that was just insane?
I think I would go with Bob Maher's Oath of Druids deck that he won PT Chicago with.
Okay.
That would be my choice.
Okay, because I can always think of like mystical tutor decks, and I can think of vampire tutor decks, obviously, because that's the best one. But I never ever think of like, wow, Enlightened Tutor was completely busted in this deck. But I guess searching up Oath of Druids is probably pretty good.
It's really good against creature decks.
Yeah. He's actually going to search up a Revoker here, and now he's going to play Thalia.
Yeah, Andrew playing a game here where he's just trying to constrict mana.
Thalia's going to resolve, Brainstorm off the top. That's going to cost a little bit extra.
And now you can see the squeeze that Riley's getting in. That Revoker can name Lotus Petal, like you've mentioned before. And Thalia is going to be really prohibitive as this game proceeds.
Mother of Runes hanging back on defense. It did get in for 3 points of damage. That might be the most all-time for Mother of Runes, since it normally never attacks, just acting as an enchantment, basically. But now Riley wants to protect Thalia from Pyroclasm or Echoing Truth effects. Make it so that thing is always out there causing trouble, as here is a very expensive Brainstorm. Pyroclasm, there was a Lotus Petal and a Mystery card there. Not convinced there was a land among those, and I don't think there was a fetch land either. So
yeah, and Riley just getting squeezed from all sides at this point.
And Lotus Petal he can't even cast because it's going to cost 1 because of Thalia. So Revoker is going to come off the top for Shrout. Going to go to the grip. We'll see if he wants to cast that or not. I mean, at this point, if you do play Revoker, I actually like the name of Lotus Petal much more than Sneak Attack in this situation.
Yeah, you got, mana is Riley's constraint right now, and I would just keep hammering that.
Yeah. Feeling tough, Mother of Runes?
Well, he left it back for 1 turn, presumably playing around Pyroclasm. Now that's no longer an option as Riley can't cast it through the Thalia next turn.
Yeah, so I guess he can't get in his 1 point of damage here.
And Andrew, perhaps doing the math to see if it actually changes the clock at all, decides it's worth the attack.
And now there's a Stoneforge missing, so does not go with the Revoker. But he has not played a land yet this turn either. But yeah, he's already passed the turn back. You see Curran's taking a draw step. Draws a Pyroclasm that he can't cast.
Yeah.
And Batterskull's going to come in.
Thalia gives him a lot of protection this turn.
Yeah.
Because of this play, for example, now he can cast the Revoker if he's looking for it and can shut down that Lotus Petal.
But this window was open for him to be able to search up a Batterskull, which is pretty nice for him.
To get Pyroclasm that turn, it would have to be something.
I don't even know if it's possible.
Does 2 mana land, tap 2, play Petal, 1 mana floating, tap island, Petal, mana floating, Pyroclasm.
Sure.
Has it, and in that in that world you still have your Revoker left over.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like it's a game-winning Pyroclasm.
Yeah.
It's good. It'll certainly do something positive, but
It's just very unlikely also that all that breaks.
that string of cards is in his hand. Yeah. I think it's rather more likely that he has a bunch of big dumb idiots in his hand.
Yeah.
Which is the case right now. You see a Phyrexian Revoker is going to come into play. Yeah, it's likely going to be naming Lotus Petal. We'll get confirmation for that. You see an attack here for 2, 3, and 4. Lotus Petal is locked down. Curran quickly draws, passes the turn back as Shrout's going to draw his card. Can keep getting on the offensive here. And again, it's not pretty how this deck wins. This deck fights dirty in the mud.
Yeah. This is sock full of pennies beat down right here.
Riley's sitting at 4 life right now. Stoneforge ready to put something in play. Mother of Rune's ready to play defense on something. Riley does draw a copy of Volcanic Island. Can cast Pyroclasm, but realizes that Pyroclasm isn't even very good right now, and is going to concede the game. So Andrew Shrout is going to win this match as the hat goes right in Shrout's face. He's going to win this one 2-1. He's going to move on to 4-1. As these guys are pretty good friends, obviously. Oh, baby! A little showmanship on the camera. A healthy burn there from Curran, taking the loss.